5 years. Just imagine that. 5 years, Strive Masiyiwa went, well, toe-to-toe with a government behemoth.
Just for the chance to launch a mobile network in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, a 5-year legal brawl. And here's the thing, right? At any point, a quiet word, maybe a little incentive under the table.
Problem could have just vanished. Poof.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Masiyiwa, nope, wasn't having it. His refusal to play that game, they actually called it legendary. It's like proper business folklore now.
It really is. And what's so striking about that initial fight is just the sheer defiance of it all. In a business climate where connections, and let's be honest, often corruption, were kind of the keys to the kingdom.
Right.
Masiyiwa saying no wasn't just him taking a moral stand. It sort of cracked open the possibility of doing things differently. Maybe, just maybe, you could win on merit, on vision.
Precisely. And that huge high-stakes gamble is really where our deep dive kicks off today. We're not just looking at, the company that brought cell phones to Zimbabwe.
No, it's deeper than that.
We're getting into the DNA of Econet Wireless, going right back to the source, the backgrounds, the core beliefs, the driving missions of Strive Masiyiwa, and that first wave of leaders who signed up for this. Well, this incredibly challenging journey.
Forget superheroes. This is about the power of conviction.
Yeah, real-world stuff.
So our goal here, as always, is to really sift through everything, profiles, interviews, official company stuff about Masiyiwa and his key people, and give you the essential story.
We want to get under the hood, understand what really drove Econet's success, especially given the tough environment.
And more than that, what lessons can we all take away for anyone really looking to build something lasting, something ethical with a real purpose behind it?
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Strive Masiyiwa himself. His early life reads like, well, something out of a history book, doesn't it?
It really does. Growing up during Rhodesia's liberation struggle, intense times, his family actually had to flee, went to Zambia.
Then he gets educated over in the UK, becomes an engineer, but instead of staying maybe where things were easier, he comes back to Zimbabwe in the 80s as a telecoms engineer. That's a huge decision.
You have to wonder, don't you, how seeing conflict, displacement, then returning to a nation trying to find its feet, how that shapes you.
Must have built some serious determination.
I think so. A desire to contribute something meaningful. And that engineering background gave him that practical view, right? Seeing how technology could genuinely change things.
And that potential really hit the spotlight in '93. That's when he took on the state telecom monopoly.
And it wasn't just a quick chat. This was a 5-year legal fight, a marathon.
Yeah, and during that whole slog, the pressure to just, bend the rules, take the easy way out, must have been immense.
Oh, absolutely. But he famously said he'd stick it out in court. No bribes. That simple phrase, stick it out, it says so much about his character, doesn't it?
It really does. So what was driving that? What kept him going for 5 years?
Well, the sources consistently point towards his values, deeply held values, rooted in his Christian faith. He saw leadership as more than just about profit.
More than the bottom line.
Exactly. He actually said, you are setting a tone. You are setting a value system for the whole company. That shows a real understanding of the sort of ethical weight of being a leader.
And it wasn't just talk, was it? He really walked the walk with a zero-tolerance policy on corruption.
Yeah, not just quietly within the company, publicly calling out graft. In Zimbabwe, even later in Nigeria.
He wanted to prove, didn't he, that you could succeed without cutting corners, that you could, like he said, stand up for what is right and do it with zero tolerance for corruption and be successful.
Which is a powerful message, especially back then in those specific business contexts.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is how he framed Econet's whole purpose. It wasn't about selling fancy gadgets.
Yeah.
It was about meeting the needs of people. Seriously, think about it back then. Something like 70% of Africans had never even made a phone call.
Wow, 70%.
So he wasn't creating a market for a luxury item. He was tackling a basic need for connection. That difference is, I think, fundamental to understanding why Econet took off.
And he lived this mission too, didn't he? Reports say he split his time, like half on business, half on philanthropy.
Yeah, that sends a pretty clear signal to everyone working there about what matters. He told his staff, apparently, that joining Econet wasn't just getting a paycheck.
It was signing up for a mission.
Right, to change something, to make a difference. That kind of authentic, mission-driven vibe, it can be incredibly powerful.
It fuels things differently.
And, in places where maybe you don't have all the resources, you have to innovate. Masiyiwa saw that. He said, African businesses often have to innovate out of necessity.
So it fosters agility, being nimble.
Exactly. And a willingness to jump ahead, to leapfrog technologies, not just copy what was happening elsewhere. Mobile money is maybe the best example of that.
Which brings us to another key point, keeping business and politics separate.
That was crucial for him. He was apparently adamant about not using Econet for political leverage, not funding political parties.
Which, in many places, is a really tricky line to walk.
Very tricky. His sticking to that really highlights his integrity, I think.
Looking forward to his focus on young people seems important.
Yeah, seeing maybe a lack of role models, he put a lot of energy into showing young people the way, that long-term thinking, investing in the next generation. That's real vision.
So how did all these personal beliefs, this strong value system, actually translate into building this huge company? It sounds like his core principles weren't just nice ideas on a wall somewhere.
Not at all. They were the blueprint, that tone at the top he talked about. It genuinely shaped how Econet operated, what it prioritized.
So it became the company's DNA.
Pretty much. And Econet's reach went way beyond just phone calls. Under his leadership, they moved into broadband, launched EcoCash, that game-changing mobile money platform.
Huge in Zimbabwe.
Absolutely revolutionized payments. And even into things like solar power. All of it ties back to that original mission, meet essential needs. Plus, you could argue his legal challenges themselves helped open the door for more private investment in telecoms across Africa.
Okay, but Masiyiwa wasn't alone in this, right? He needed a strong team, people who bought into that vision.
Definitely. Let's talk about Douglas Mweweni, CEO of Econet Wireless Zimbabwe for a long time. Engineer, joined back in '96, became CEO in 2002.
And his story is quite something to humble beginnings, ends up with a PhD in business leadership, known for being resilient.
Yeah, what's interesting with Mweweni is how he built on Masiyiwa's foundation but brought his own strengths. He's got this academic, strategic mind, even developed something called a leadership-driven resilience model.
Sounds intense.
Helps navigate choppy waters, I guess. And like Masiyiwa, his faith seems central. He's quoted saying he gives all the glory to God, who gives us the wisdom and ability to apply knowledge. So you see that same blend of faith and leadership.
And he was big on mentoring, too.
Very much so. Passionate about guiding young people based on strong biblical values, he said. And he saw Masiyiwa as his role model. So you see that continuity of ethics.
And under his leadership.
Subscriber numbers in Zimbabwe went way up. He oversaw the EcoCash launch. And importantly, he kept that ethical stance even when Zimbabwe's economy was incredibly volatile.
Okay, who else was key in those early formative years?
Well, there's Hardy Pamhera, another engineer, but also strong finance background. He was group CEO for a while.
What was his focus?
Integration, bringing different parts of the business together, driving expansion outside Zimbabwe. His finance experience across Africa was vital for managing investors, securing funding. Now he's heading up Cassava Technologies, pushing into AI, fintech, kind of continuing that tech innovation legacy.
Right, keeping the momentum going. And the finance side seems critical, especially with that anti-corruption stance.
Absolutely. Which brings us to Roy Chimanakaya, Deputy CEO and Finance Director, Chartered Accountant, came from Deloitte.
So solid credentials?
Very solid. His focus: governance, financial discipline, transparency, compliance, non-negotiables. He even won a Director of the Year award.
Okay, so he was the financial anchor.
You could say that. Managed the money side of huge projects like rolling out EcoCash nationally, handling big international investments, making sure growth was financially sound and, crucially, clean.
And there's one more key finance person mentioned.
Yes. Chinjeto Moyo, the current finance director for Econet Wireless Zimbabwe, her background brought this real focus on operational efficiency, keeping costs tight.
Important in tough economic times.
Definitely. She's credited with steering the company through major currency issues, securing funding, and managing the finances behind expanding the EcoCash agent network and supporting small businesses. Her financial guidance has been key to keeping Econet profitable.
So you look at Masiyiwa, Mweweni, Pamhera, Chimanakaya, Moyo. What's the common thread linking these leaders?
It really feels like Masiyiwa set a powerful example, right? And these individuals, each with their own skills, really embraced and embedded those core values: innovation, integrity, social purpose, deep into Econet's operations.
Well, it wasn't just Masiyiwa's vision, it became their vision too.
Exactly. That commitment to philanthropy Masiyiwa had, it seems to have really soaked into the company culture. And that central idea, empowering Africans through connectivity, education, economic opportunity, you hear echoes of it in all their contributions.
Like Masiyiwa said, giving people what they need, improving lives.
Fundamentally, yes.
And looking back, Econet's journey from that incredibly tough start to being a leader in mobile tech, mobile money, broadband across the continent.
Mhm.
It really does seem like a direct result of that initial vision and that kind of values-driven leadership.
I think this deep dive really highlights something powerful. The personal values, the missions of these founders and early leaders, especially Masiyiwa's unwavering ethics and focus on service, weren't just nice to haves. They were, it seems, absolutely essential to building something successful and genuinely impactful in Africa.
So here's something maybe to chew on. Think about the tone at the top in any organization, big or small. How much do the core beliefs of the leaders really shape not just the profits, but its overall impact on the world around it? What kind of tone are you setting, in your own work or life?
And if this intersection of tech, business, and social impact in Africa fascinates you, maybe dig a bit deeper into the story of mobile money. Its effect on financial inclusion has been truly transformative. Or look into other African entrepreneurs who've overcome massive challenges to build something meaningful. There are some incredible stories out there.
Just one final thing before we wrap up. Our discussion today, it's based on what's publicly out there. News reports, statements, company info. We've aimed for accuracy, of course.
But the full picture, the complete inside story of any big organization, well, that's rarely fully public, is it? We just wanted to make that clear.